So today I have for you guys the 100k Q&A. I got a bunch of different questions ranging from how to improve at low elo to what my aim routine is to personal questions as well. So thank you guys so much for leaving your questions in the comments of the last video, and I hope you guys enjoy. You used to play other agents. I'm not complaining, but why'd you start sticking to only Viper? I feel like it's easiest to improve at the overall game of Valorant when the agent you are playing is something that you don't have to think about. For example, a lot of things with Viper have become second nature to me, when and where to use my smokes, when to play lineups. So those are things that I have to think about less often, which allows me to focus on things like rotations, timings, lurks, and other in-game macro plays. And the reason that it's Viper and not some other agent is because I just really enjoy her playstyle. What is your aim routine? How do you warm up? I don't really have an aim routine. My warm up is really basic. I play 3 to 4 death matches and then I'll go into the range, practice my spray control on the target, and do some reflex shooting on the bots. When things get stressful, how do you stay calm? I pretty much just take deep breaths, and for stressful situations, the more that you experience them, the less stressful they become. So things like clutches become less stressful the more clutches you play through. What is the most satisfying play you've done? In recent memory, it's definitely this one.
I think we won.
I actually think you did.
We actually won.
Oh my fucking god!
Oh my god!
You guys are so freaking Is that?
I main Viper now because of you, and I was wondering if I should always try to do my lineups or stay on site. What should the conditions have to be? There's no black and white answer of when you should play lineups, but you definitely shouldn't always rely on your lineups. The main times that I like to play lineups are when I know my team has good control of the site for post plant and I can safely get out to my lineup spot. If my team is struggling to defend against the retake, then I'll stay on site and use mollies to help slow down the retake instead. What are your future goals for streaming, content creation, and life in general? For streaming and content creation, it's always to just make content that I really enjoy, because if I'm not enjoying the type of content I make, then it's reflected in the quality of the content itself. In the future, I would love to be able to expand into other games or other topics of content creation. As for goals for life in general, I would definitely love to travel more and see more of the world. There's so many different cultures, experiences, and places to see. Realistically, do you think you could ever go pro in Valorant using lineups? Lineups are just one aspect of a character's kit, whether it's Viper or some other character. So no, to be a pro player, you have to be really well-rounded and you need to be a master of multiple different agents and different playstyles. After using Viper's ultimate, in what situation should we come out of the smoke or camp in the smoke? I pretty much always stay in the ult unless something forces me out, like a drone, a Roomba, some sort of flash. Or if I'm using the ult in a post-plant situation, then I can use the ult and move in and out of it to buy time and molly the spike at the last second. Pretty much moving in and out of your ult is good if you're just trying to stall time, but definitely most of the time you're going to want to stay in your ult and just keep control of that area. Do you plan on expanding into other games apart from FPS content-wise? Potentially in the future, but not right now. How do you deal with the toxicity that tends to come with Viper lineups? Honestly, I just laugh whenever anyone gets toxic over Viper lineups. I think it's funny. What character did you start with? All the way back in beta, I started with Sage. What is one tip to just keep grinding if you feel like quitting the game? I mean, unless you have some big goal of going pro or something, just take a break. You don't need to play the game if you feel like quitting it. Don't play the game if you don't enjoy it. How did you learn all of your Viper lineups? Pretty much most of the lineups I find myself by just going into a custom game, pinging the spot where I want my lineup to land, and then while standing at the spot I want to be able to do this lineup from, I try and see if there's something that I can line up either on the HUD or with my crosshair to aim at from that spot. Is it worth to buy Shorty with Viper even though you don't have ult? Yeah, I definitely think it is. I do it all the time, especially if I'm playing a spot where it's just a choke that I can sit next to. That's easy to hold if they run out through a smoke or a snakebite. When did you start playing FPS games and what was the first game you played? Did you ever play games other than FPS games? The first FPS game I played was Call of Duty on console. I played that for a couple years. I surfed on CSGO, and that was about it for other FPS games I've played except Valorant. And did I ever play games other than FPS games? I mainly played League of Legends actually for about 6 or 7 years, and then I went pro in Fortnite. So the last 2 games I mainly played weren't even FPS games. How do I work on crosshair placement? What's your motivation? If you want to work on your crosshair placement, just play a lot of death matches and try and always think about where someone's head is going to be if they peek you at that angle. You always want your crosshair to be at head level, and the easiest way to get comfortable with that is to just play the game a lot. I definitely recommend playing a lot of deathmatch. That should be the quickest way. And my motivation for anything is always just self-improvement. I always want to be better at that game. I always want to be a better content creator. Do you come up with your own lineups? Pretty much all the lineups I use, I come up with myself. There's probably 5 or 6 lineups that I got from someone else. Do you know Unidaro the Viper King? I actually love Unidaro's videos. Definitely recommend you guys check him out. As for other Viper players I also watch Rayon and Dixon as well. And I also really enjoy watching pro players play Viper, because there's always something you can learn from them. Any tips for dealing with toxic teammates? Pretty much anytime I get a toxic teammate, it's just an instant mute and report. There's pretty much no reason to give a toxic teammate the time of day or any of your energy. It's just not worth it. Any aspirations of going pro or just content creation? I won't say never, but right now I primarily want to focus on content creation. Did you have any former FPS experience before transferring to Valorant from Fortnite? I played CSGO for 1 summer when I was in high school. I have about 100 hours on it. But leading up to Valorant, I actually started playing a little bit of Counter-Strike again to learn things like crosshair placement and counter-strafing, which I pretty much had no idea what either of them were before Valorant. How long did it take for you to get to Immortal, and what are your tips on staying consistent? It took me about a month after the Valorant beta release to get Immortal, and my tips on staying consistent: to be consistent, things have to remain consistent with how your setup is, what your sensitivity is, your crosshair, your sleep schedule. Keeping all those things consistent and just playing the game regularly are all very important to being a consistent player. If you aren't comfortable on your setup or your sensitivity, how can you expect to perform well regularly? Do you play any other Riot games? Have you ever tried Legends of Runeterra? I've actually never tried Legends of Runeterra, but yeah, I love League of Legends and I love teamfight tactics. I have thousands of hours on League. It was my main game for 6 or 7 years. I still play it every so often, but mainly if I'm not playing Valorant, if I'm playing another Riot game, it's going to be TFT. Any tips for low elo players? Go into every game with a positive mindset, anticipating that you might lose, but be ready to learn from the mistakes that you made that game to help improve yourself as a player. If you see every loss as a learning experience, you're going to improve much faster than someone who just shifts the blame whenever they can to someone else. I actually have a video on this that I think is really important for low elo players to watch that I'll include a link to in the description as well. Which gun do you prefer more, Vandal or Phantom? What's the logic behind your preference? I prefer the Phantom, and the reason for that is because as a Viper player, a lot of times you're going to be playing around in your smokes, and of course the Phantom has no bullet tracers, which makes it a lot harder for you to get shot back at through your smokes. Also, the Phantom has a bigger clip and it's just better for spraying in general, so I think it's just the better gun. But at the end of the day, if you like the Vandal one-taps, then keep using the Vandal. So those are pretty much all of the most popular questions that I got for my Q&A. Thank you to everyone again who left questions. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys maybe even learned something from this. I really needed this video sort of as a break from the ranked grind of getting clips. So I really appreciate you guys being patient with me on that end.